stay dead. Break it down. The Don Rocks. Get yourself a crew and offload it before long. People know you legit. It's Ricky. He won. You gotta get in too deep. Then I can let you out. I know the players, man. I know the game. Hey, come on, Dad. I can do this. And we can do this. We can fix our lives and be a family again.
Seth, so your first offense with no weapons, drug distributing, fugitive, faking your suicide, and identity theft.
Yeah.
Was those that obviously raised your numbers on your jacket to put you in the medium?
And add in 5 years for having an Italian last name.
Yeah. No, actually, you know, my offense, I had like a you know, the conspiracy charge was a 20 to life. So it was like a base 240 months. But since I fled, you know, they gave me 5 extra years. You know, they gave me an obstruction of justice and enhancement. So that was like 60 more months. And then that took me up to like 292, well, 52 extra months. And then like when they caught me, because I had like 20 fake IDs when they caught me, you know, all through like legitimate sources, you know, it was all through like, you know, the state DMVs and stuff like that. And I had like 4 passports in different names. But then they gave me like, they didn't even have identity theft back then. So I didn't get charged with identity theft because back, you know, this is 93. They didn't have identity theft. It was called mail. They gave me a mail fraud and they gave me a failure to appear. And it was crazy because like I already had 292 and then they indicted me like on another 4-count indictment. I pled out to the mail fraud. I pled out to the failure to appear and they gave me 12 more months, but they didn't run it concurrent. They ran it consecutive. So they were like, boom, 292. And then they put 12 more, stacked it. So it was like my total sentence was like 304.
Wow.
Yeah.
25 years, 4 months as a first time nonviolent offender.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you got to as the years went, you got to work yourself down. Did you ever make yourself into a camp?
No, because I couldn't, because I had the you know, the fugitive charge. You know, I was a fugitive for 2 years. You know, like you said, I faked my suicide on the Potomac, you know, Great Falls, Potomac River. And, you know, that's a story in itself because I planned it out. You know, I from that area, I was always like reading the newspaper, you know, because I was a big sports guy. So I was always reading the sports section in the Washington Post. And sometimes, you know, I would catch like the Metro and you would see like front page in the Metro section, you know, like, you know, youth or whoever, you know, commit suicide at Great Falls. You know, they jump in the Potomac River because there was this area in the Potomac River. It was like it was considered a class 5 rapids. You know, like they would have dudes kayak there, but only like the experts because it was like so dangerous, you know, because the river was like crashing everywhere and they had like rocks, you know, so a lot of people would jump in the water there because you couldn't swim and you would get smashed against the rocks. And it was pretty much, you know, a foolproof way to commit suicide. So I had remembered that. So when I caught the case, you know, and I was out on bond, I was like, you know what? I was like, basically like they were telling me, they were saying, look, you can set people up. My lawyers were telling me you can, you know, set people up and snitch people out and maybe get like 5 years, or you're looking at 20 to life, you know, and I didn't like either of those options. You know, I wasn't going to snitch nobody out and I didn't want to go to jail for life for 20 to life. I was like, man, I was like 20 years old. I was like looking at more time than how old I was. So, you know, so I was like, fuck. So I was like, I remember that thing, that suicide thing, right? So I made this elaborate ruse where, you know, I took all my clothes and you know, I'd even, like I would floss my teeth, you know, to get my blood. And then I would like put my t-shirt, you know, I put my t-shirt on my clothes and I threw all those clothes in the water. So like they could get my DNA and stuff like that. I set up the whole scene. And the only thing I fucked up, right? Because they got these dams, you know, that on the Potomac River, because they got all these bridges going into DC. So they got all these dams to like kind of calm down the water before the bridges, before it goes out to the Atlantic Ocean. Because I thought, you know, I would jump in, they don't find the body, you know, goes out to the Atlantic Ocean. I can be declared legally dead in 7 years. That was my plan. But I did it. I staged a suicide on the wrong side of the dam. So, you know, I fucked up.
Yeah, it's like the guys do that with the Golden Gate Bridge too, because you can get, if they don't jump right, it'd be like, you know, their body would not be swept out to the Pacific like planned. And one small detail
Yeah.
can, you know, you have this great elaborate, you know, total, you know, master criminal level scheme, and it's just one
Yeah.
little thing pops up.
No, I thought
balloon,
I thought I
man.
was so smart, but really, looking back, I was
Yeah.
I thought I was like, super smart, but I was like really naive. And so what they did, the park rangers, they dragged the river for 2 weeks. They didn't find a body, in front of the dam. They didn't find a body. So then they told the prosecutors. So then the prosecutors came out and said my suicide was a hoax. But that was
And you're
crazy.
tempted to call in and say, no, it wasn't. No.
So it basically ruined my whole
Don't tell
plan.
me I messed up. It's not a hoax.
Yeah, they ruined my whole plan. So from there, I mean, I was a fugitive for 2 years. I eventually got caught because I kept, I wasn't selling LSD at this point, but I kept selling weed. I started running weed from like Dallas, Texas, up to St. Louis, Missouri, where I am now. And eventually I got caught. But I found out after I got caught that for some reason the U.S. Marshals, like, they made me top 15 U.S. Marshals most wanted list, which is like crazy, because I was watching all the shows, like when I was a fugitive, I was watching like America's Most Wanted,
Yeah.
like Cops, like all those shows, and I was seeing like how long it takes to match up your prints. And I was seeing like serial killers, it was taking like months to match up their prints, right? And I'm like, so when I
Not this.
eventually, yeah, when I eventually got busted in Missouri, I had fake ID, but they got my prints, right? And I'm thinking, man, I got like, if it's serial killers are taking 6 months, I'm like, man, I got a year. They're not gonna figure out who I am for a year. But I was top 15 U.S. Marshals list for some reason, and they matched up my prints in 3 days, and caught me. But the story behind that, there was this guy he's a federal circuit judge in Richmond now. His name's Henry Hudson. He's a fourth circuit, judge. So he's like real high up there. And he was the assistant prosecutor on my case, right? And then all of a sudden, when I became a fugitive, he went to the head of the U.S. Marshals in Northern Virginia. Because even when I got caught, the U.S. Marshals were like looking at my jacket, and they were looking at me, and I looked like a college kid, and they're like, who the fuck did you piss off?
Huh.
Yeah, because they could tell my jacket, I'm not violent. Even like on my most wanted poster, right? It says, like most people on the most wanted posters, it said should be considered armed and dangerous. Mine says should be considered dangerous. And then after that, it says Ferranti faked his suicide. So it's like, who am I a danger to? Myself?
Right.
So it's like
You're
crazy.
at
But
risk of committing another fake suicide, dude.
so I eventually found out that this dude, Henry Hudson, who was assistant prosecutor in Northern Virginia, the Eastern District of Virginia, he went to the U.S. Marshals because he felt like I was a black mark on his record, and I took off, and I guess I made him look bad or whatever, because I was like this, young kid or whatever.
Sure.
So he felt offended that I did this. So he went to the U.S. Marshals. He did all the paperwork.
Took it personally.
Yeah, to make me, U.S. mark, or to make me top 15. And then like when they caught me, I was like a feather in his cap. And then, it's a lot of these dudes in law enforcement and prosecutors. Like the only way they can rise in level is they got to have like these high profile busts. So I became like a I'm not saying like I'm the only reason why he became a judge, but I was
exactly. And for the audience, a lot of folks that are, average Joe citizen out there, they don't quite understand how a lot of times with prosecutors, it's not necessarily about the truth or the facts. It's about who can win in court and what they can get. With me, I've said before that, I was arrested shortly after 18 for grand theft and burglary. And this was in, I want to say February of March of 94. Well, in California, the 3 strikes law kicked in November. And my co-defendant on that case, the second he violated probation, they brought him back in there and they started doing this 3 strikes threat stuff and saying, and it was not just him, but guys I knew, younger guys, Mexican boys, white boys, whatever, that grew up in my area were getting hit with strike cases. And why? Not because they were necessarily dangerous, but because that was a new law and the prosecutor claimed they want to set an example. But really, these guys are thinking about higher office. They're thinking about elections. They're thinking about their careers. They're thinking about promotion. They're thinking about advancement. And I'm not trying to disrespect prosecutors or other DAs out there that do the right thing, because I know many of you do. But the reality is, folks, and I think Seth's case is a prime example of this too, is that a lot of times these guys in law enforcement, and the gals too, of course, equal opportunity when it comes to promotion, you know, and careers, they will do what it takes to get their fame almost as much as they try to make some of us infamous. You know, I'm sure you guys both have seen that, because you both, you know, had to do some time, whereas I didn't really have to do very much.
So, Seth, you started off small, nickel and diamond, and then you're working your way into bigger quantities. Two questions: where did you get the money to get into the quantities you were getting, and then how did you meet your supplier?
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew a lot of people, you know, in Cali, like even, you know, family members and family member friends, but also in Northern Virginia, you know, I had my godmother was there, and I had two godbrothers. You know, one was my age and one was about 4 years older. And you know, he's never got in trouble. They tried to get him on my case, but they couldn't get him. But he was basically like he was into the Grateful Dead, you know, and that's like one of the dudes that I was going to, you know, I was getting ounces from him. And eventually, you know, he had a lot of contacts, and how I got, this is funny too, because how like I made my first big buy was I was like as a kid, I was an avid baseball card collector, right? Like I was obsessed with baseball. When I was a kid, I still watch baseball, but when I was a kid, like probably from like the age of 5 to 15, like baseball was my favorite sport. I could name all the people, you know what I'm saying? I had all the
85
cards.
Detroit Tigers, Alan Trammell, that he was the bomb.
Yep.
Kirk Gibson in
Yep.
88. There's a lot of them.
$2 million worth of baseball cards my mom stole and pondered off for her drugs. But yeah, I feel you on that. Same boat.
Yeah. Baseball
Look, I
was
was a
big
kid
by that time. Yeah.
I was a kid, you know, I would be like, you know, at San Diego, like Jack Murphy Stadium. You know, I would be up in San Francisco at, you know, the Giants at Candlestick Park. And like when they used to have those card days, you know, where they gave out like little, I was a kid like standing at the gate asking everybody that came in, can I get your cards? Can I get your cards? Can I get your cards? And so, you know, by the time I was like 17, 18, man, I had like this massive card collection that I'd probably been building since I was like 8 or 9, right? So, and this was like, if you remember the late 80s too, you know, I mean, first it was always Tops, right? But then they were coming out with Donruss, they were coming out with Fleer,
Right.
and they even had like some other ones, I forget the names. And I was like a big, not only did I go to all the conventions and I would like trade and buy stuff like all through the 80s,
Yeah.
I would get like the complete sets. And then I would also like go to places like you know, Toys R Us, and they used to have like those 3 or 4 packs where like you could see the cards, you could see the front card and the back card. And I would go through the whole thing and look for like the rookies, you know, that I thought were gonna do good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would just, yeah, I was like, you know, like Don Mattingly, you know, like Ricky Henderson, like, you know, all those dudes from like the late to mid 80s. I would like speculate. So I would get like every year, you know, I would get like 20, I would try to get 20, 30 rookie cards of, you know, these rookies. You know, some might become valuable because they become good, and, you know, some you might just end up throwing away because they were never valuable. But I went in when I was like, it's probably like 88. So I was 17, you know, probably like a junior in high school. And I went to a base, and this was like the baseball card business at this time, late 80s, was like pumping, man. You know, and some stuff that I had basically bought, my parents bought me, you know, and I had collected, and my parents would give me little money, you know, or I had a paper route and I would go buy stuff. My collection, dude, it was probably worth like 15, 20,000. And so I took it and I sold my whole collection. And that's how I got my first big buy.
Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden.
Oh yeah, Dwight Gooden,
Cal Ripken,
John
Jr., Mattingly,
Tony Gwynn.
Yep,
Hey, Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn. Yep, those are the ones. I remember.
Yeah. Dude, I had like my 2 favorite players were Tom Seaver and Dave Winfield. You know, because I spent
went to our high school. Tom Seaver went to our high school, Mkali.
Mets. I know.
Yeah, love Tom Seaver. And, you know, I grew up a lot of time in San Diego too, you know, because my dad was stationed there, you know, for the Navy. And so I used to go to Padres games. You know, I've been to a lot of, so I love the Padres, right? and Dave Winfield was like my first favorite player, and then I like Tom Seaver. So I had like them. I had like all the way from their rookie cards to like every single card, by them. And yeah, I
Steve
think
Harvey ended up going over there.
yeah, that's when they went to the World Series, '84 with Alan Wiggins, Tony Gwynn, and I ended up. I maybe got almost 15,000, man, for that card collection, and I
Nice.
took that, and I went to my godbrother, and I was like, look, man, I'm like, basically, I'm trying to get in the game, man. I've been hustling, doing stuff for you, but I'm trying to make some money, man. I got like this big clientele, and he's like, look, man, he's like, we got some weed connects down in Kentucky, where we get good bud. They would get stuff sent from California, but they also had some contacts, because besides Northern California, the other spot that's really, really known for growing good bud is Kentucky. They grow some really, really good weed down there, right? Because they grow it in the clay. They got a lot of clay in the soil. So whatever it is, that clay in the soil, it just makes the weed killer. So they had that kind of same outlaw culture like Northern California. So he hooked me up with some people down in Kentucky, like Monticello and Barberville. It's kind of like Southern Kentucky, and they're like dry counties. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, yeah. There's lots of guys who've made money on moving alcohol in those areas. People out here don't really see how that could happen, but
yeah, moonshine, white lightning,
and
yeah.
weed
So
was a big
Kentucky
part.
bluegrass.
Yeah. So I went down there. So I ended up going down there, and he hooked me up, with a farmer that he knew, and down in Monticello, and this guy like had a farm, like some land, like way back in, they call it the holler, like it's like one way in, one way out, and it's like weird because like all his relatives like live in front of him. So like if the cops are coming, like they just call and say, the cops are coming because there's only one way in. And I went down, I made a big purchase. And this is like some good outdoor bud. Probably not as good as like Emerald Triangle, but still, compared to the brick pot that was going around, I mean, it was really good bud. And I went down there and I probably, because you can only get into harvest time, maybe like from September to December, because most of the farmers, they come off with like 25 pounds a year. It helped them get through. It's not like they had major big operations. Kind of same way how like Humboldt and all that developed at first, before they got commercialized and all the big, cartels and criminal organizations came in. But I went down there, made a big purchase. I was probably paying like maybe 1,400, 1,500 a pound, so some really, really like back then we called it kind bud, it's not as good as
kind. If there's a few names,
it's not as good as the indoor the shit they got today, but it was probably still like 16 to 18% THC. Yeah. So I took that back up, and basically I was getting like 200 ounce all day. So I was like, I was doubling my money, like no problem. And plus like I could get, I started out with probably like 10, 15, and basically I could move it. It would go like that, especially when I started going to colleges, because anybody that has sold, weed or psychedelics at colleges, it's basically like, like an open air drug market, but all in the dorm rooms and stuff. Because I mean, you can bring 10 pounds and it's gone in a weekend, and you could sell it all in ounces. So I started doing that, and then how I got hooked up with acid was through my godbrother too, because I was like, dude, I got the weed connect. I'm making good money, but I go, I want a good LSD connect, and he was like, go on tour, dude. Meaning the Grateful Dead tour.
Yeah,
so
go with the Dead. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I started going on tour, and he had some homies, he had some dudes that he knew on tour. So I just had to go, it was like back then there was no cell phones or, stuff like that. So I had to actually go to the lot, and I had to go find these dudes, and then be like, and I'd be like, hey man, your fucking homie, I'm his little godbrother, man. He told me to fucking come look you up, said you could hook me up, and I got cash. And then once I established that connection, then they started doing like the mail order, like right from San Francisco, where I could just call like a 1-800 beeper number, and punch in, because that was a big thing back then in the late 80s. If you were a big drug dealer, well, the real big drug dealers had those big ass funky phones.
Yeah.
But the rest of us, we just had like a 1-800 beeper.
Right.
Because all the local guys just had a local beeper. So if you were like a national drug
I've got a nationwide beeper. Yeah, for the audience out there, if you had never got to a Grateful Dead show, it's something else. Even if you didn't like the music, it's something you had to have done once in your life, and you would have loved it. And you know, the whole the parking lot is filled with people that are selling stuff from their vans or whatever, nitrous balloons, weed, mushrooms, food. Also guys buy
T-shirts.
beers and sell 22s of the high quality microbrews back then, and they pack back full and make, you know, and so it was like it was a total marketplace of, and it was just cool, you know, it's a cool scene.
It was like a flea market. It was like
There you go.
yeah, you could get crystals. You know, they would have like dudes, they would have like, they call it drum circle, and dudes playing like bongos.
Right.
And, you know, all like hippies, dudes like, you know, all dudes with dreads, all different type of people. And a lot of people that were there for the music, you know, but I like the Dead. I mean, the Dead are cool, but you know, I'm more like a rap, you know, metal guy. So you know, I was there more, you know, for the scene, but there were a lot of people that were just there for the drug scene. So, you know, that's how I basically got, you know, my two connects. And you know, the same like through the Kentucky farmers, you know, because some of the Kentucky farmers, like, you know, when after harvest, like the more successful ones, you know, they would go down to like Fort Myers, Florida, and they had like dudes that just lived down there, you know, and they were bringing stuff in like Mexican brick pot, you know, through the Fort Myers. So, you know, I got hooked up through the Kentucky guys. I got hooked up with some of their homeboys down in Fort Myers. And so then I started driving down to Fort Myers